Hi, YouTube. It's Thursday night at 6:17 p.m. Pacific time. I hope everybody's doing well. Um, Got your last look at the helmet here while it's still available tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock at long last. Weeks overdue. I'm going in and having extensive chemical procedures and decontamination protocols applied. And then I'm going to get a haircut, which is, again, long overdue. I feel like a woolly mammoth out here. But hope everybody's doing well, and it's good to see everybody. Uh, just been, you know, just out in the weeds there. Not really much to talk about that I've got prepared. We have an American Pope, which is a first. I've heard he's not a very Catholic guy, but in any event, we'll find out. The very limited amount I've heard about it was that he's a pretty liberal guy, which is not exactly what we really need. He's Pope Leo the 14th. I would have gone with something new. Um, I don't mean to sound disrespectful or anything. I do a show. It's pro-immigration. Great. That's just great. Um, I do a show fairly frequently with Father McTeague on Station of the Cross. It's just been wonderful to talk to. I don't know, 7, 8 of his shows at least, I would say. Really enjoyed talking with him, and I really liked it. Um, I love doing them. But if it were me, I would go for an original name. Like I remember John Paul the First, who lasted a couple of weeks, I want to say, right? John Paul II took his name. I would go with Pope Chuck or something. You know, if you're going to be an American Pope, you might as well be like Pope Woody the First or Pope Buckaroo. That'd be cool. Nice thing about being Pope Buckaroo the First would be you have a pretty high degree of certainty that it'd be a while before there'd be a Pope Buckaroo the Second. So you'd kind of own the space for a while. But in any event, um, uh, I don't know. I don't know how liberal the Pope is going to be. I do know that what all the data points out there seem to say is that more and more these days, every day that goes by, people want a muscular religion. You know, they don't want they don't want they don't want the people that are left in church don't want less church. They want more church. They don't want kind of this groovy. Hey, you know, yeah, you know, we have lesbian pastors, and we have, you know, that's not what the people who go to church want to hear. They kind of want to hear the word of God, and they kind of like to think that the person who's speaking it has read it and means it. Um, they're talking about continuing Francis's ways as Lady Hawk. Okay. Then they're going to continue to lose Catholics. The one denomination that's really growing right now in America aggressively, at least most aggressively, Christian denomination anyway, is Eastern Orthodox, apparently, because they take it seriously. Um, they you know, they expect you to go into that church and kind of believe that, you know, that there's a God, and that this person speaking is his representative of the earth, and so on. T. Mooney over there on YouTube says, "Did you see the new statue in Times Square?" I did. Saw something on that just a few minutes before we started rolling. For those of you not up on latest in the art world, there's a 20-foot tall, 30-foot tall statue of an ordinary, kind of angry-looking, overweight blonde, black woman rather, who looks like she don't need no man, and is not going to take a lot of cap from you know, from anybody. It's excruciating, and and it's not, doesn't represent anybody. It's there to get us to consider things, and to subvert our expectations of what art and beauty should be. No, it's not Stacey Abrams. Not that big. There's not enough bronze in the world for that. I don't think, honestly. I think, given the price of copper, but the statue of Letitia James. Fine. I don't think it's about anybody. It just looks slovenly, and I think it horrifically perpetuates stereotypes. You could have done Booker T. Washington. You know, you could have done any number of people, but you didn't. You just kind of just picked this 30. It's a 30-foot tall bronze monument to attitude, is what it is. It's just attitude. The whole statue is attitude. I don't know. Richard R. calls it the statue of lethargy. Yeah, that's pretty appropriate. In any event, it's real ugly, and I wonder how people would feel if somebody knocked it over. Not saying you should do that, mind you, because I don't believe in vandalism, or I'm serious. But given the number of statues that have been knocked over and removed, I wonder what people's response would be to having a woke statue removed. It's just pretty. Can you see a picture of the darn thing? Yeah, I suppose I can do that. Hang on. Boy, that is just, it's just nasty. Hang on. Oh, there we go. Okay, hang on. You asked for it. I didn't offer. I'm just telling you. It's, there you go. Hang on, YouTube. Don't want to miss this. It's the high point of the day. Yeah, that's what graces the what was once the center of the universe. You know, the spindle upon which civilization turned. Times Square was for a while there really the center of the universe. Now it's this. Rough Ryan says it'd be one thing if she saved a bunch of children from a burning building, or was a Medal of Honor recipient, but clearly that's not the case. No. And people have pointed out Oprah Winfrey or Harriet Tubman. Eric points out there's any number of people you could have done. I think that this is the thing about the statue that's most iconic about it, is that it doesn't represent anybody. It's not about achievement. It's kind of a DEI statue. In fact, that's exactly what it is. It's a DEI statue for Times Square about nobody. It's not somebody who is particularly, like I said, there's any number of people. If you wanted a statue of a black woman, there's any number of people you could choose. I don't remember the name of the woman who was the mathematician on the Mercury program, but that'd be a perfectly fine example to make, so that people could ask questions and get answers. That's just nothing but attitude, and it's horrific. It's just really horrific. Yeah, it's exactly right. It's a statue of Karen. Jack O'Houlihan says, man, that just screams, I want to talk to the manager. Somebody, their memes out there are all over the place. Somebody said the statue represents somebody who said, yeah, I finished a Happy Meal and ate almost all of the fries, but I didn't like the way that the Coke tasted flat, so I want my money back. And it's ugly. That's the bottom line. It's just ugly. It's just plain ugly. It's an ugly statue. Um, and yeah, it's permanent. Yep. I don't think anybody's going to be taking that away in any time soon. Although it doesn't appear to be mounted securely on any kind of a pedestal or something. I don't know if it's standing there under its own weight, which is significant, or whether the feet are anchored there, but it doesn't appear to have its own plinth. Is that the word I'm looking for? Kisama with a super chat says the left loves their golden calves. Yes, exactly. Or she says now compare it to this one. Here's one. Yeah, there you go. Who's this fine fellow? York, the African-American man who accompanied famed explorers Lewis and Clark on the 1803 expedition. Perfect. Here, have a look at this, just so you can see how selectively racist we are here. This is somebody who they made a statue of, a fellow named York, whose name I was unaware of. York was on the Lewis and Clark expedition, and that is a fine piece of work. That is inspiring, artful, heroic. It's all of those things. Hang on, YouTube, takes me a second. Why couldn't you put that in Times Square? I think York looks like a stud to me, man. Look at this guy. He was out there with Lewis and Clark, and what a freaking badass. Yeah, that's exactly right, Marcia. York looks like an all-American badass. You could put him in New York and just kind of shorten the beak a little bit on the bird and be like, this is what happens to pigeons that don't mind their business in this town. So yeah, that's the kind of thing you could have spent money on a statue on. Could have spent some money on a statue like that, but no. I just can't have anything. Well, first of all, problem with York is he looks masculine and he's carrying a weapon, so that's out of the question. But yeah, York would have been cool. You could have a picture with his son, maybe, if he had a son. That'd be cool. He could be like, have his hand on his shoulder. It'd be York and New York, and you would have like ironic meaning. But no. Yeah, so we gotta get that bronze lump in New York City. I was going to say you could melt it down, but then how would you tell? Because York looked like, I'm down with York. I think York kicks ass. Ba-boom. There you go, Infidel 42. How about a statue of Chappie James? Yes, Chappie James, one of my favorite people. Chappie James would have been awesome. Booker T. Washington would have been awesome. Frederick Douglass would have been awesome. Scott Joplin would have been awesome. Thelonious Monk would have been awesome. You could just run the list. Just Thomas Sowell, would he fool for the win there? Yes. Harriet Tubman, yes. All of them. But no. Anyway. T. Mumi says we should have a statue of the Gorn. That would be epic. Statue of the Gorn with his flint knife. That'd be frickin' epic. Anyway. Philly Chattermatic says instead of Harriet Tubman, we get Harriet Tubby. Yeah, Teletubby in New York City. What a frickin' joke. Well, it's not modern art if it's not ugly. So, yeah. I think Tom Gerlach says even Tyson would be better. If we're talking about Mike Tyson, I've gone from loathing and despising him to really admiring him and feeling like real affection for the guy. Something happened to Mike Tyson. I'm sure it wasn't a donation. I'm sure that was tax money at work. I'm sure that was somebody spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. Um, Mike Tyson agreed anybody, literally anybody living minority who has a relatively moral background would have been better. Did Mike Tyson really say that? Yeah, Mike Tyson became, he grew up and became wise and gentle and so on. Yeah, we're going to draw the line at Neil deGrasse Tyson, however. That Tyson, no. No, not that Tyson. Mike Tyson, yes. Neil deGrasse Tyson, no. What was his name? The guy that Robert Downey played in Lincoln, Sergeant Lincoln, something or other, in Tropic Thunder. It'd be epic. And T. Mooney again, the robot from Lost in Space, would be badass too. That would be badass. Not with his arms retracted though, but his arms would have to be out with his claws open. You know, like warning, warning, danger, Will Roberts. That kind of pose. That would be cool. In fact, it'd be really cool if you had him in that pose, and then you wired up the claws so that there was a continuous electric arc, just constantly, nonstop, lighting up Times Square at night with like this blue white light. That would be wicked cool. See, if I was a billionaire, that's what I would spend my money on. I would spend my money on 30-foot tall Lost in Space robots with actual electric arcs going from the claws. That'd be freaking badass. And then that gives something for the pigeons to think about too. I love the robot. Robot was my friend. Robot was my friend. He was great. Yeah, Clarence Thomas. Yeah, another fine example. Anyway, I would rather have Justice Jackson. I'd rather have a statue of her than that. Because you could at least make a case for that, you know? Really, I mean, it's like you're going to have a liberal statue. That's one thing, you know? Why not her? Anything other than this thing. Dave Big Boutte says Trump's tariffs are working. Even the Pope is made in America now. That's a great line, Dave. You get extra credit for that one. That's right. That's right. They were going to have an Italian Pope, but the tariffs to bring to American Catholics was just too high, so they just went with a Made in America Pope. I hope he doesn't embarrass us too much, although I don't have a lot of confidence in that. I think it's time for us to dive into the questions. Yeah, I think that's what we'll do. Natasha wants to come in and work on one of her videos tonight, which I'm fine with. It takes a while. I have continuing updates from the fellow who's working on updating the speed on the website, who's making repeated assurances and sending me many different screenshots. I haven't seen big improvements yet, but hope and naivete springs eternal, I guess. It sure is blindingly fast when you're not logged in. It without question has a problem with the forum, and I think it's got to do with photos that have been uploaded to the forum. I think what we're going to do is put like a size cap, a 5 megabyte or a 20 megabyte size cap on it, because somebody uploaded into the forums a file that was like 23 gigabytes or something like that. And I think that's part of what's slowing things down. But they are apparently working on it, so they've been working on it since the sun was born in the nebula created by ancient supernovas in times long gone past. TSL questions for 5825. got a good response on the on that last right angle, the not of this world right angle featuring El Estepario Siberiano. Siberiano. That was really a fun thing to do. I just love being able to share that with people. He's just, if you haven't seen it yet, it's a drummer who's not of this earth, and it was, like I said, it was a really fun change of pace for right angles, and also good indication that we can do, you know, more eclectic stuff. Because, like I said in the introduction, you have your choice of either, you know, Doge or tariffs or SpaceX. Those are three topics that we're allowed to have now on right angles. So there you go. Oh, thank you very much for that. Let me put this in the YouTube comments, and I'll just add a little something here, sorry. Fantastic. She's got to 4,000 subscribers now. Thanks to you. You guys got her going, and you know, started getting that ball rolling. So she's got 3,900 some subscribers, and that's largely due to you fine people, and the videos keep going up. So we're gonna do a new one tonight, and they're out there. So. Yeah, it's beautiful. So I posted the link there on YouTube, and if you haven't had a chance to check it out, check it out. It's just kind of meditation, relaxation music. It's just beautiful to listen to, kind of beautiful to look at, and if you haven't subscribed, I sure would appreciate it if you did that too. So there you go. Okay, here we go. Let's have a look at what's coming down the pike. We got a Marusha Dark, we got a Road Rider, we got a Capital G Geek, we got a Jacob Belchek. Got a Road Runner. We got an Eric Blake. Got a Marusha Dark. All right, we can do that. Let's begin, shall we? Everyone back to one. Everyone back to one, please. Okay, and action. She might surpass you. I hope so. That'd be great. And she could make the money, and I could just sit back and drink margaritas, which is not a bad way to go. Dave Olson in YouTube says, speaking of not of this earth, Eddie Van Halen came to Sammy Hagar in a dream, and now Sammy and Joe Satriani and Michael Anthony have a new song. Cool. That boy could play guitar. That's a fact. And he was fun too, man. I remember him just walking down that series of desks in Hot for Teacher. Eddie Van Halen just playing that guitar solo, that big smile on his face. That's the 80s for me. That's what it was all about. It was such a great time, man. The 80s just rocked. I really just loved it. I just thought it was fantastic. Dave Olson says, the first time I heard that song, I was so happy I almost burst into tears like a freshly crowned Miss America. Yeah. And wasn't it Miss Fizette who was the one who was the general favorite according to audience polls and conversations over beers, that kind of thing. Anyway, here we go. Marusha Dark topic: gangbangers. Mr. Virtual President, your staunch defense of the right to bear arms is well documented, and the nation joins you in mourning the loss of an entire ATF in that tragic boating accident last week. That said, many of the gang members and drug cartels in Central and South America traffic in arms sourced from across the United States, with the largest number coming from the great state of Texas. This includes heavy weapons and armor sufficient to rival local police forces. But beyond just economic pressures like tariffs or sanctions, what can be done to put a stop to this clear and present threat to American interests, given that the Latin American governments have all expressly refused outside military assistance in dealing with these groups? Well, I don't know what I don't know what the law is about legally exporting guns. Uh, I don't imagine it's. Not sure it's legal. Does anybody know? If I have a gun shop in Texas, can I legally sell guns to somebody in Venezuela? I would suspect that I cannot. Um, I'm pretty sure that you cannot. So anything that's going on in terms of saying, well, these guns came from Texas and so on, is it's illegally done. It's, you know, you can't solve that problem by taking away legal guns from people. So, you know, that's yes, Fast and Furious, right? Okay, so you need export licenses. So if guns are heading into Central and South America, they're being stolen uh, and smuggled there. There's precious few gun owners that are selling their guns, period, and even fewer of them that are selling their guns to random strangers on the street. Um, so if the guns are coming from the United States, they're coming to the United States into South and Central American countries from Central American or South American gangs. Um, so part of that is kind of like saying, not entirely sure this is our problem. Um, I'm just looking. Tariffs or sanctions. I don't see how tariffs or sanctions applies. It's not the fault. Let's take Colombia for example. As God knows they've got enough problems, but if American guns are being smuggled into Colombia, that's not something we punish Colombia for. They're the ones who are suffering as a result of it. What you need to do is have a secure border and have it secure both ways. I don't know how the guns are getting down there. If it turns out it's a program like Fast and Furious, where, of course, as you remember from, I want to say around 2008 or 9 or 10 or somewhere around in there, where the CIA shipped a bunch of guns to cartels to presumably to trace the pathways of so on, and all it ended up doing was just arming up these murderers. Um, you know, that's one thing. Um, except it is kind of our problem, says Marisha, since the gangs and cartels then use our weapons against us. Where here in America, I don't see that. I mean, again, that doesn't make sense. We don't have operations going on in Colombia, and the gangs and cartels that are using weapons in America are using weapons that weren't exported from America to Colombia and then smuggled back into America again. If you're telling me that gangs like MS-13, as an example, are heavily armed, that's not an export issue. That's a stolen gun issue. That's a same kind of issue as any other illegally owned domestic firearm problem. So I think this business of going after these gang members is one of the most breathtaking surprises that the Trump administration has hit us with. And I remember this happened on day 2 or 3 of his administration. You know, you start arresting gang members in American cities, and I just thought, Jesus, this is a dream come true. Funny thing about criminals and murderers is that they thrive where there's no opposition. They don't have enough cohesion. You don't find gang members that are willing to go out there and lay down their lives for other gang members that they don't know personally. You know, they're not a military. They're not fighting for a cause. They're criminals. And I'm not saying there's no loyalty within the gangs, but I'm also saying if again, we'll come back to MS-13. MS-13 is smart enough to know they don't want to go to war with law enforcement in this country, because if they do, then there you go. Now Marusha Dark can just never let anything sit. Says Mexican gun cartels buy 500,000 American-made guns every year. So, who's wrong? Can somebody just call up Jimmy's gun shop, or can somebody call Colt and say, "Hey, how are you? We're a Mexican drug cartel, and we'd like to buy 2,000 AR-15s. How soon can we expect them?" where does that statistic come from? That's a fine quote. What's the source? Meanwhile, Alex Hooper says CNN interviewed the MS-13 gang member, and he was giving Trump props and support and respect because they respect strength. Drug cartel, yes. So how did the Mexican drug cartels buy 500,000 American-made guns every year? That's an enormous number. How did it get them? You can't legally export the guns. So where did 500,000 guns a year come from? Seems like I would have thought 5,000 would have been an exorbitant number. Now Joe Sibia says we buy guns from all over the world: Italy, Germany, Japan, Spain, and so on. It's because we're a free country. Refrain says bought them illegally at the very best straw man purchase. Mark Milliman says the FBI and the CIA sells them. I don't know about that. I mean, that we know for a certain fact that Operation Fast and Furious sold guns to them and so on. But this idea that we keep supplying guns to drug runners is, I don't know if I can really believe that. Although I'll believe anything from the former FBI, I'd be willing to bet you the present FBI is not going to be doing that. Yeah, I don't know. 500,000 guns. Axios, huh? Targets American gun smugglers in response to Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said Thursday she will propose constitutional reforms to crack down on foreigners involved in gun smuggling in the country. Move came after the U.S. State Department formally announced it has designated 8 drug cartels, including 6 in Mexico, as global terrorist organizations that pose a threat to national security. The designations prompted worries in Mexico about the U.S. military crossing the border to target the cartels. Trump allies prior to his inauguration repeatedly discussed a soft invasion of Mexico to target cartels. Still looking for the number. The Mexican reforms would apply highest penalties to foreigners who are found guilty of smuggling and distributing guns. I'm behind that 100%. If you are the Mexican government, you found an American who's illegally smuggling guns into your country, then throw the book at him. Roughly 200,000 to 500,000 American-made guns are trafficked into Mexico each year, primarily from sources like unlicensed gun dealers and straw purchasers, they said. Well, I don't know how many unlicensed gun dealers there are in the United States. And straw purchasers. These are the kind of things that the FBI should be looking at. I mean, these are genuine concerns. I mean, first of all, in order to own a gun in this country, you don't need permission to own a gun, but it is denied to felons. And since smuggling guns, I'm sure, is a felony, you no longer get to be an illegal gun smuggler anymore. Mexican justice system's large case backlog. Statistics show that only about 40% of incarcerated people in Mexico have actually been convicted of a crime. Well, that sounds about right. Private sellers, 200,000, 500,000 private sellers selling off guns to anonymous sources in Mexico or to some shady character somewhere. I just find that really, really hard to believe. I mean, really hard to believe. I'd like to hear some counter statistics other than Axios on that, because I find that, yeah, just seems ridiculous to me. And if it turns out that there are Americans who are doing these things, buying guns and then selling them to smugglers, then that's a job for the FBI. The FBI needs to track those people down and arrest them and put them in jail forever. Pretty straightforward to me. That's seems pretty straightforward to me. Look, I've never heard of the problem before, and for Mexico to make a claim that 200,000 to 500,000, Mexico is not without motives in this discussion. So again, without hearing at least some supporting evidence, I just don't believe those numbers. Colonel Angus says maybe Mexico should build a wall. That's brilliant, dude. That's brilliant. That's really brilliant. Yeah, Mexico should build a wall to keep the American guns out. Yeah, I'm not convinced. I'm not 100% trusting either Axios or the Mexican government in this one. Moving on, Road Rider. Hi, Bill. Hi, Road Rider. I'm traveling for work today against my will to the heck hole of that third world failed narco state to the south of you. Would that be Orange County, or are we talking Compton, Torrance? Well, I don't know. Good thing it's only for a few hours. Wow, I'm so sorry, Road. Be safe. The great thing, we're at the point now where people not only ask questions, they also provide the answers. So AI can take over this stratosphere situation pretty quickly now, I think, without too much trouble. No question, only a compliment. Thank you. The last Story Mechanics was fun and enlightening and educational and fun and entertaining. I was really skeptical about Story Mechanics, as in what's the hook? Why am I spending time watching? This last episode answered those two questions. Great work. Good questions and answers by Micro. Good lighting, audio, and editing too. Not bad for a one-man operation. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I think I mentioned last show or 2 shows ago, I think Jeremy sent me a picture of that guy doing that emergency landing on the golf course, that steely-eyed missile man. And he says, is this your work? And I said, nope, some other steely-eyed missile man, but this is my work. And I sent him episode 5 of the Micro thing, and Jeremy said, I enjoyed that very much. That's a tough crowd to please. So thank you. I appreciate it very much. It's very kind of you. Capital G Geek, greetings from the swamps of Northern Virginia. It's nothing but swamps up there. It's swamps all the way down. I heard a suggestion that would apply to the natural-born citizen requirement to all positions in government, at a minimum all elected positions and judges. As I'm sure you've heard, the GoFundMe for Carmelo Anthony, the Texas stabber, has been overshadowed by one for Shiloh Hendricks, who said a bad word. Both of those show increasing tribalism and an unwillingness to compromise. This was kicked off by Obama and accelerated by Black Lives Matter ignoring valid police aggression, Philando Castile, Eric Garner, and instead pushed obvious thugs like Michael Brown, George Floyd, in my humble opinion, intending to increase racial division. Took 50 years to get to the lowest point of racial tension in recorded history and 15 years to roll it back. Absolutely. In the 70s, in the mid to late 70s and into the 80s, things were really looking up. In fact, when you get into the Cosby Show in the 90s, it really looked like we were about to put this thing behind us. And then Barack Obama comes along, could have closed the deal. He could have closed the deal. He could have simply said, he could add one sentence, the election of me as your president is all the evidence that could possibly ask for to prove that America is no longer a racist country. Individual pockets of racism may still exist, but as a country, a racist country cannot elect a black president. That's all he had to say. But that's not what he did. He just made things worse and worse and worse and worse and worse because he's a Marxist and a communist, and he wants to fundamentally change America, and he sure enough did. And now we're trying to fundamentally change it back. Worse, the millennials and Gen Z know that, and I know, are very done with catering to any minority sensibilities. Yes. Yes, the race card has been declined for insufficient funds And the term that's showing up more and more in the pop culture is black fatigue. And yeah. He goes on to say, vigilantes are the next obvious step or have already started. Yeah, that situation where the policeman shot this kid that was running away. And then his father goes out and murders a policeman, runs over a traffic cop, and is celebrated by the black community. I want to see the body cam footage of the original shooting. You know? Oh, thank you, Darth Chuck. That's kind of you. I appreciate it. But there is no question that white people's attitudes have changed or are changing, in the process of changing very rapidly. And when they lowered, when Facebook made a statement several weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago now, that they're no longer going to police language as much, the amount of white people expressing essentially just being absolutely done with the whole crying of racism from people who are shoplifting, or crying of racism from people who are being pulled over for traffic stops or whatever. When the police body cam videos, when the body cams were put into place in the wake of the George Floyd and BLM riots, everybody thought it would show how racist the police are. What it has done is to show that, with precious few exceptions, 99 out of 100 cases of police body cam videos have shown that the police are not only not racist, but bend over backwards to be accommodating, in many cases too accommodating, and that the amount of racism that the police have to deal with, the amount of abuse and the amount of violence and all of it, is astonishing to people who watch the body cam videos. It's astonishing what they have to put up with. Body cam videos are, I remember I was really addicted to Cops, and body cam videos are Cops without the editing. But when you saw, I loved watching Cops because I loved watching, people just plain, you would see video of somebody, breaking into a car, grabbing a purse, and then you would apprehend these individuals, and then you would have video of them basically saying, "That's not my purse. I've never seen it before." And then the whole Karen's thing on top of it, as EM Man points out in Twitch, it's like it's just being lied to, just all the time. I don't know how policemen do it. I don't or police officers. I don't know how they do it. I really don't have any idea at all. It's something. Anyway, Capital G Geek goes on to say, a solution would be if the government and companies were to suddenly become blind to race, but I don't see that happening. There's a chance of that. That's essentially what Trump is doing by eliminating DEI. This is what conservatives have been pushing forever. That conservatives have been pushing this. That we should have colorblind applications for everything. That race should be taken off of college admission forms, should be taken off of everything. It should just disappear. It's not relevant. Tom Gerlach says, my police friend loves having a body cam. I'll bet he does, because they get accused of rape and assault, and they get accused of starting things. They're accused of starting violence. They're constantly being, people are constantly, I didn't do anything. Well, I didn't do anything is correct grammar. It's not usually how it's phrased. But the body cam shows who's basically who's starting it. The body cams show who's overreacting and who's behaving themselves. And there are times and many times when I've thought that the police are just bending over backwards way too far, that it's actually almost embarrassing how accommodating and how many chances police give people who should have been arrested much earlier in the process. People getting trespassed from a property because they're too loud or they're drunk or whatever, and the police give them 35 warnings when really it should be, I think somebody said, first you ask them, then you tell them, and then you remove them from the car. I think that's pretty much it. You get a request, then you get a command, and then maybe then a warning, and that's it. But to just constantly crazy. 5708 Rivera says the African Americans I encounter on a daily basis are nice and polite. Me too. It's not an African American thing. It's a ghetto thing. And I see plenty of white people in these videos who I just want to see tased and handcuffed and taken in. In fact, the most infuriating of these body cam cases usually are rich liberal teenage girls who've never been told no in their lives. Those are astonishingly lawless and unbelievably rude people. But it's ghetto culture. It's ghetto. It's the ghettoization of the pop culture, and the ghetto is often many people make that synonymous with blacks, but it's not about blacks. It's about the ghetto, and ghetto whites are just they're just fighting all the time, and it's just like, no, it's not about that. It's about just the sheer vulgarity of it, the vulgarity of the music and the lyrics and the whole twerking thing and the amount of obesity and it's just and the weaves and all of it. It's just too much, man. And there you go. Are we heading to a race war? I don't think we're heading to a race war, but I do think we're heading to a reckoning. A reckoning. Kasama has a super chat, says, I never had a black friend, but have had several friends who are black. Well said. We're pretty race blind when I grew up in the 80s. Yeah. I mean, it's, I'll tell you what though, of the racism that does exist in this country, I would say at least 80% of it is in the black community. I think that's just indisputable. At least that much, and so this is a very convenient business about how blacks can't be racist. It's kind of funny how convenient that is. So a lot of the left is racist too. Yeah, well, the entire idea of leftism is racist, Matt. Leftism, progressivism, is white liberals saying that black people are too stupid or too lazy to get an ID, and so we shouldn't require them to have IDs to vote. The entire idea of progressivism is that white liberals have to step in and help these poor children who are not capable of taking care of themselves. So yeah, it's not just the racism of low expectations. It's a genuine belief that people can't take care of themselves. Whenever they say, "Oh, we're here to protect you," it's like, who the hell do you think you are? And who do you and who do you think we are? So Morgan Freeman says, stop talking about it. I couldn't agree more. Anyway, he goes on to close this by saying, still looking forward to Bill bitching from the bitchin' Camaro. I have to finish the bitchin' Camaro, so it's 80% of the way there. It's that 80-20 rule again. But, yeah, it's just, it's like listening to the left say, well, if you deport all the immigrants, who's gonna clean our toilets and who's gonna pick our apricots? It's like, well, turns out that immigrants from South and Central America do things other than that as well, although you wouldn't know it to ask a liberal. So you get the idea. Hang on. Oh, thank you, Leonard. Thank you for the kind words. Candace Owens has a Booker T. Washington mindset on race. Yes. Raised by her grandfather to favor hard work and education in spite of racism. Yes. And not only in spite of racism, but also, with basically white America bending over backwards to specifically support people. This idea that so many blacks have, that whites are trying to keep them down. It's like every white person I've ever known in my life has always been like, I would like to help these people up. I'd like to help them up. That doesn't get through very often. So there you go. There's that. All right, here we got a long one from Jacob Belchek, so let's see if we can get through this here. Building on the question from Mr. Geek above, there's a little poem called The Beginnings from Rudyard Kipling. It's taken up residence in my mind. In it, he describes the process by which the British, a largely peaceful people, began to hate the Germans of 1914 to 1918. Interesting. In many ways, I see similar things happening to American politics. The left, fully convinced of their own moral righteousness, tirelessly pushes for demonstrations of evil that are genuinely astonishing, and they do it all with a smile, wondering why you're fighting them as they stomp on your face. I'm beginning to see indications that the right is abandoning the idea of reasoning with their opponents here. I agree with you. You can have an argument or a debate over a tax rate. Someone saying cis women should be forced to have sex with trans women or they're transphobic, an idea that I've seen stated much more colorfully, is much more difficult to debate peacefully. Yes. Yeah, let me just get to that in a second. Publicly, the right is starting to carry an incandescent fury and disgust with the left, yes, and feel righteous in doing so. They're not seen as erring brethren to be corrected, but monstrous enemies that must be destroyed. Well, they used to be seen as erring brethren who could be corrected, but once you saw what happened when you try to discuss things with people, when you try to reason with them, when you look at Charlie Kirk going to a college campus and so on, you realize that these people are not in the mood for a discussion. They will not have a discussion, and they react to people who want to have a discussion with violence. And after a while, you begin to realize that, you know what, these Japanese are not playing by the same rules that we're playing for. When they call for a medic and we send a medic and they use a grenade to kill that medic and another 3 GI standing next to him, then they're not playing by the same rules as we are. And so you come to the realization that you don't apply the rules of fair fights to people that don't fight fair. And I think, yes, I think the right has come to realize that after the 4 years of Biden and everything that was done to the country. I think the right came to realize that no. Thank you, Leonard. It's very kind of you. The right has come to say, no, we're done. We're done with talking about it. That's why I think that well, that's certainly why Trump is as popular as he is. And that's why those first few weeks of the Trump administration, 47 administration, were so euphoric for conservatives, just so giddy. We're just like, he's done that. He did what? What did he do today? He really? Jeez, he's what? And yes, it's like, we're done arguing. We're done arguing. This is why I've taken the position I have on the judges. It's like, this is not in good faith. These federal judges who are trying to block the executive office of the United States, the only court, the only part of the judicial system that should be able to block the executive branch is the Supreme Court. Had this conversation hundreds of times on the show. I'm not going to have it again. But it's like, yeah. So, well, they're claiming that they're violating their rights. I don't care. If this person's not a U.S. citizen, they don't have rights. If it is a U.S. citizen, on the other hand, then they do have rights, and I don't want to see those rights infringed just because I don't like them. So there you go. Marusha says, just today Trump signed a trade deal with the UK proving that the tariffs are working. Of course they're working. Everybody's going to end, what we're going to end up with is we're going to end up with not only free trade, but free and fair trade. That's what the tariffs are all about. They were never a long-term solution. They were designed to get people to play fair with the United States. And when Trump says, hey, we could fund the entire federal government, just with tariffs, what he's doing is he's sending a message to foreign governments saying, I might keep these tariffs in place forever, which is incentive for them to negotiate. Once again, it's not what Trump says, it's what he wants. What does he want? And he's a master at it. He ought to write a book about how to make deals. He's so good at it, So there you go. Thomas Schreiber in YouTube says, we play fair, they fight dirty, we lose. That's how it works. Wish it wasn't true, but it is. Baron of Grey Matter has a super chat there on YouTube. Kanye West just dropped a new song featuring Adolf Hitler, and I'm not kidding. This will change karaoke forever. It's an insane song. Kanye has 36 million followers. 5708 Rivera says Trump predicts $10 trillion investment. From Britain? No. From just Britain? Major says, Bill, if they're not citizens, they have no rights. It's potentially dangerous because the government can strip a citizen of their rights just by claiming they're not a citizen. That's why we were concerned about Gitmo torture under Bush. You can't claim somebody's not a citizen. You're either a citizen or you're not. My wife is a U.S. citizen. 3 years ago, she wasn't. Can't strip somebody of their citizenship. And I'm not saying that people without citizenship should be treated without dignity or should be treated brutally or anything else. I'm just saying that this idea that 30 million people who are not U.S. citizens are entitled to the protection of U.S. citizens is just plain nuts to me. It's not, well, they should be treated the same as well, no, they shouldn't be. No. If they want to be treated, if they want the same rights and protections of U.S. citizens, they can come to the country legally, period. Or they could go back to their home countries and fight for a society and a constitution that provides them with their own civil rights. If they want American rights, they can either come to America legally or they can introduce to their own countries a government and a constitution that will give them the same level of natural rights that Americans have. But we paid for these rights. We continue to pay for these rights. There's millions of Americans that died for these rights. And there's millions of Americans that are out there right now and sleeping in uncomfortable places to protect the rights of the rest of us. And you may say, well, it's not fair that Americans have these rights and other countries, other citizens don't. It's like, it's not a question of fair. I didn't determine where you were born. If I was born somewhere else and I somehow managed to be me, born somewhere else, first thing I would have done is I would have become an American, and I would have done whatever it takes to do it. P7 2017 says, by what metric did the U.S. become obliged to fix every other nation on the planet? I don't know if we're disagreeing here, but I'm not suggesting we go and make them that country. I'm saying the people that are here illegally can go home to their own countries and get their own form of democratic republic with a guarantee of individual personal rights according to natural law that are not provided by the government but provided by God upon birth, and that their government is prohibited from infringing upon, just like us. I'm not saying we go do that for them. I'm saying if you don't like the fact that you came here illegally and you're being deported without a hearing, then wherever you're being deported to, go and start a revolution there and form your own government where you have constitutional rights. But it's just a form of parasitism, you know. It's like you come here illegally, you walk across a ford in the Rio Grande, let's say, and here you are. Natural rights are universal, not just for citizens. That is a moral and philosophical argument, but it's not a political one, and it is not a practical one. Yes, it's true that natural rights are universal, but it's also true that there's only been one case in the history of the world where that was realized and turned into political reality as a result of a great many compromises, including the right to vote and the obligation to obey the law and so on. So yes, they can go and fight for their natural rights the same way we fought for ours. We didn't have natural rights before the American Revolution. We were the subjects of King George. And we made the sacrifices, and we went and made the sacrifices again in the Civil War, made the sacrifices again in World War II, and so on and so on and so on. John Pershing says you have the right to live, you don't have the right to live in my house. This entire idea of natural rights being universal is an American idea, and certainly didn't exist prior to 1776, and furthermore, does not exist anywhere else in the world, really. I mean, Britain is a great example. Modern day Britain is a totalitarian nightmare. People are being arrested because of Facebook posts, and that is not the same thing. Now, Short Ass Bastard says our current government in Airstrip 1, which of course is England from 1984, is in for a massive surprise when the tipping point comes, and it's not far away. I hope you're right. I hope you're right. Baron of Gray Matter just says, Seattle District Court judge blocks Catholic Church choice of Pope. Boy, that's great. That's great. Did you come up with that, or is that a Babylon Bee headline? Because it sure sounds like one. Anyway, back to the question here. As a historian, are you aware of any time in American culture where American on American hatred has been this intense? I know we haven't graduated to American Civil War violence, but I can't imagine that the average Billy Yank and Johnny Reb soldiers hated each other nearly as much as or as personally as we hate each other today. What say you? Oh yes, they hated each other much, much worse. They hated each other enough to go out and kill each other. We're not at that point yet. It's not possible to imagine the vitriol that existed between the two parties, the two factions, I should say. Although parties is pretty much the same as factions. The Democrats were the slavery party, and the Republicans were the anti-slavery party. The famous case of a Democrat Southerner caning an abolition. Charles Sumner, I think, was the abolitionist, and Preston Brooks, I think, in Congress, he beat this man nearly to death. He beat him so badly that he didn't come back to Congress for 3 years. They kept his seat empty. We're not at that point yet. I don't know what to say. Well, for example, are you ready for this? I don't know how many states it was. I want to say it was 4. But during the election of 1860, there was at least one state, and maybe it was 4 or 5, where Abraham Lincoln did not win a single, not electoral vote. He didn't win a single popular vote. There were entire states where Abraham Lincoln didn't get one vote in the state, and that's it's inconceivable. I mean, a landslide, a deep red state is a 60% state, and California's deep blue. What was the what were the popular vote totals for for Trump in California in 2024? Was it 65-35? Something like that. That's still, 4 out of 10 people, 3 out of 10 people. So no, we're heading for a reckoning, and I don't think it's going to be a race war. I think it's just going to be. We're already seeing it, the signs of it. It's just going to be like an unwillingness to be bothered by charges of racism anymore. It's just not going to have any effect. It's like the Democrats howling about, well, this is not fair. If you do this, it's like that used to be enough to keep Republicans and conservatives off the case, because we care a lot about being fair. We care very much about being fair. But yeah, P7 2017 says Trump got over 40% in California, I thought. So take the bluest state in the nation, certainly one of the bluest states in the nation. Right now it's 60-40. It's not like 97% Republican or Democrat and 3% Republican. When the Civil War happened, as I said, Abraham Lincoln didn't get a single popular vote. That's 100%. So we're nothing like it. Nothing like it. And the rhetoric about killing Yankees or killing rebels in the years prior to the Civil War was much more heated today. You can't talk about killing, openly talk about murdering people on the other side of the political spectrum in this country. I mean, you really can't. Certainly can't do it as a public figure. So, no, we're not in anything like the kind of trouble we were in prior to the Civil War. I think what's just going to happen is, they're going to start enforcing the law. I think ultimately it's going to be some form of long-term form of. Remember when right as this? In fact, this might have preceded. In fact, I think it did precede Trump's inauguration. California passed a law that said that we are no longer going to allow shoplifting. It used to be that if you shoplifted anything under $900 or whatever it was, you essentially got a slap on the wrist. Then even Californians had enough and passed a law basically saying, no, we're going to have serious penalties for shoplifting. And there were these 2 black women who were shoplifting, and they're in the back of the police car, and they're getting carted away, $999 and under, or $945, whatever. These 2 black chicks are locked up in the back of a police car, and there's obviously a camera and a microphone back there. And one looks at the other like, what the hell happened? What are we going to jail for? And the other one turned to her and said, new laws, bitch. And it's like, yeah, I think that new laws, bitch, is going to be a thing. That's essentially what's going to happen. They're going to realize, lawbreakers are going to realize that they're actually going to spend some time. Of all the things in watching these body cam videos, and of all the things that must make policemen insane, all of the abuse they take and all of the violence they have to deal with, and the threat of instant death and all of that, nothing must be more demoralizing to a policeman than going to all this trouble to arrest these people and having the charges just be dropped by these judges. 3 counts of felony assault on a law enforcement officer, charges are dropped, and they get 10 hours of community service, or they get 6 months probation or something like that. Baron of Gray Matter says all Walmarts are closed now in Portland, Oregon. This is how it's going to happen, right? Okay. I've heard Oakland is worse, that there are no more Starbucks, there are no more Walmarts, there are no more Targets, there's no more nothing. Okay. Now, if you want something, you can get on a bus and go someplace else. Gen Z ain't taking it anymore. Hope that's true. It's going to continue until the law is enforced, and it looks like we have. Look, it all comes down to it all comes down to who owns the Justice Department and essentially who is the Attorney General. If the Attorney General is on the side of criminals, then you're going to get more criminals, and that's what we had with Barack Obama, and that's what we had with Joe Biden, and that's what we would have had with with Kamala Harris. We would have had a Justice Department that's on the side of the criminals. But it takes a while for this stuff to filter down. And there you go. So I really think that it's going to start at the top and work its way down. But at least in the short term, I think the single most important thing that could happen would be for it to be made clear to the American people, that if there is a crime in progress and a citizen does something to stop that crime, then the citizen won't go to jail. Right? That's the thing. It's like you can be in a store now and watch people just shoplifting, just walking out the store with armfuls of stuff, and somebody who's wired like me, and probably somebody who's wired like you, is inclined to want to get between that person and the door and just say, "You're not just walking out of here with that stuff." Well, who the hell are you to tell me? Well, I'm just a citizen, but I'm just no. You're not walking out of here. You're not. But if you do this, you're as likely to go to jail as in fact, you're more likely to go to jail than the person who's doing the shoplifting. Once you can't have law enforcement everywhere. If you're going to have a law-abiding society, you have to have law-abiding citizens who are willing to do that. So I was kidding about Orange County. Orange County is that's just the only thing I could think of south that was not Mexico, and I knew it was Mexico right away from the question. But no, I love Orange County. In fact, the second you cross into Orange County, the road is smooth. You stop feeling like you're in Mogadishu, and all the trash is picked up. So there you go. Moving on, Roadrunner. Greetings, friend Bill. As I'm sure you've heard, Catholic Church has elected a new pope, an American from Chicago, Pope Leo XIV. According to someone very knowledgeable, if you like Pope Francis, you'll love Pope Leo. Do you think the Catholic Church having a new pope will have any real effect on your life or the lives of non-Catholics in the United States? Please let Natasha know that I really enjoy Cosmic Compass. Thank you very much, Roadrunner. That's one of her latest videos, and it's pinned comment on YouTube there. We've talked about this already, and I know you made a comment while we were talking about it that anticipated your question. I don't know if there's a whole lot to add to that. I don't think that the Pope has a tremendous effect on non-Catholics. It does have an effect on Catholics, obviously, and the effect on larger society is that a very liberal Pope, I think, is extremely demoralizing to a number of Catholics. I think it's very demoralizing to American Catholics, especially to American Catholics who are, as most of them are, real advocates of law and order and so on. So I don't think that's going to have much effect on non-Catholics, as I said, and more to the point, what happens in cases like this is that all that happens when a pope comes out and says things like, "I'm in favor of illegal immigration," all he's doing is destroying the moral authority of the papacy. He's delegitimizing the morality of the entire religion. Roadrunner says many Catholics have converted to Eastern Orthodox churches. It's apparently a pretty simple process. Yeah, and has Eastern Orthodoxy has a great deal of the ceremony and the pomp that the Catholic Church has, and a great deal of the liturgical elements that the church has. Madam Gray Matter says, wrong, Bill. Catholic NGOs collected $800 million to traffic illegals and kids across the border. Pope Francis said it was good. Well, that's disturbing. I had no idea. Well, that's deeply alarming. And and I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know what to say about that. I had no idea. As many people have pointed out, there is in fact a wall around Vatican City, and he's more than welcome to allow immigrants into Vatican City. He doesn't have to take millions of them. It is the smallest country in the world, after all, but it is its own country. So how many illegal immigrants is the Vatican ready to admit? Um, so there you go. Eric Blake, Southern Baptist, is rising alongside the Orthodox as well. Yeah. So, yeah, there's that. Moving on. Eric Blake, tonight the case of the Pakistani perpetration. So, Bill, what are your thoughts on the current India-Pakistan conflict? When was there not an India and Pakistan conflict? Considering Pakistan's responsibility in the escape and hiding of bin Laden, Argentinian Nazi style, I personally know who I'm rooting for. Yeah, me too. But does America have any responsibility to go further and actually involve itself in the conflict? My God, if there was a conflict on the face of the earth that we have no business being involved with, it's the India-Pakistan conflict. I can't imagine a single scenario on the planet that is more removed from American interest than that one. There is just absolute. Uh, no, we have nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with that, and I don't think anyone's really talking about that either, and I'm sure you weren't either, as you said here, agreed. Um, yeah, P7 2017 says how the flag ceremony at the checkpoint on the Afghan Indian border, the Pakistan Indian border, is hilarious. Um, Baron of Grey Matter says Pakistan will use tactical nukes, India responds, and China jumps in. Well, they've had much worse conflicts before and they didn't use nukes. Um, and even if either Pakistan or India did use nukes, I don't see any reason why China would jump into that mess. Um, uh, that nuclear genie is a terrifying genie, and these two countries have tens of nuclear weapons. They might have hundreds, but in the only way you would use a nuclear weapon would be to stave off catastrophe. And the only catastrophe, I'm not talking about conflict now, I'm talking about existential catastrophe. And the only existential catastrophe would be, an actual invasion. Um, I think we're talking on the backstage show about the fact that India is talking about renegotiating the water rights because most of the water that gets into Pakistan has to flow through India first. And I said, well, hell, man, if I'm Pakistan, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stop making nuclear bombs and start making nuclear-powered desalination plants, because if my water supply runs through my arch-enemy's country, that's not a situation I particularly feel is, being able to cut off your water is worse than being able to cut off your oil. Um, so, um, 2017 says, didn't the U.S. develop artillery nukes after what happened at the Chinese border in Korea? Yes. The United States had a nuclear artillery round. You can find it on YouTube. It's really cool. It goes, and then there's a long-ass wait, and then off in the distance there's a bright flash in the sky. It's a small yield weapon. I don't know what it was, probably. Hey, thank you, Leonard. Thank you very much. I think the yield was probably 10 kilotons or something, or less, 5, something like that. So, yeah, I don't, and I don't think this is going to escalate much. Now, I'm not going to say it won't get into an actual more of a shooting war, and there going to be planes shut down and all the rest of it, but air wars and airstrikes are one thing. Infantry and tanks crossing the border is something else. and both of those countries have enough conventional weapons to be able to blunt. I don't think either country has the kind of resources to launch an invasion that is an unstoppable conventional invasion. So I don't think it's going to get much worse than it is now, and certainly not as bad as it's been in the past. Baron of Grey Matter says India just said 2 weeks ago it would take China's role for the U.S. as manufacturer. Lo and behold, Pakistan attacks. China has a huge interest. Okay, I'm not saying they don't have a huge interest. I'm just saying you want to join the drop nuclear bomb club. I can't imagine a situation where that is the case, where it just seems incredible to me. Wesley Bruce says India and Pakistan are talking. I don't think we'll see any escalation. The Islamic terrorists are expendable to the Pakistanis. Yes, they are. So we'll see. Baron of Grey Matter says they just had the biggest air battle since World War II. Yeah, and he sends a link to getting serious between India and Pakistan, and it's a link to the hilarious border stuff. You should click the link. It's really good. Where'd it go? I love these border things. Oh man, it's just great. Where'd that link go? Can't seem to find it. Oh, wait a minute. It might be in the other one. Hang on a second. Yeah. I'll put this into YouTube for those of you who are looking for a good laugh. Here you go, YouTube. If you haven't seen this yet, it's high entertainment. High entertainment. I want to watch it again, in fact. There's a border crossing, and by the way, they sell the stands are filled with people on both sides, and they're selling concessions, and and they're so this border town opens every morning and closes every night, and both sides put on this very intimidating military display, which is enough to make any grown man quake in his boots at the sheer seriousness of it. This is called counting croup, or sometimes it's called butterfly warfare, where it's all about intimidation and display. The haka is a great example of that. I love the haka, by the way. If you've never seen the New Zealand All Blacks, before they start a game, they do this Maori dance called the haka, which is designed to intimidate your enemies. It's not really a battle formation. It's just who can be the most scary to the others. It's all for show. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Yeah, this is enough to make Marines and Special Forces guys, SEALs, quake in their boots when they see these guys in action. They don't want to mess around with the Pakistanis or the Indians when push comes to shove. When you get those kind of soldiers out there, it's madness to mess with that. Okay, last one for the night. Marisha Dark again with liberty and impeachment for all. Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution reads, the United States shall guarantee to every state in the Union a republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion and on application of the legislature or of the executive when the legislature cannot be convenient against domestic violence. Pursuant to this clause, can we impeach every last politician and government official who utters the phrase our democracy in clear violation of their oath? Tempting. And then doubly for the ones who fail to protect against invasion and domestic violence. Now there you've got a better case. So all the sanctuary cities, all the Congress, people defending men and women's sports and BLM, etc., just on this one clause alone. Well, every state in the Union does have a republican form of government. It's just that the left likes to call it a democracy. There's no state in the Union that is a democracy. Every state is a republic. every state has a Republican government. Every state has its own state legislature with legislators elected by the people. So it is Article 4, Section 4 is in effect in every one of the states in the union. I think the only time you can go after them is if California were to say we're no longer going to be representative democracy. We're going to set up a situation where every single that bills can be submitted by the population and that people vote online to see which measures pass into law. Not representatives, anybody. Just vote online. Whoever gets the most votes wins. It's like governance by referendum. That's what a straight democracy would look like. But well, they're certainly not upholding their oath. But many of them are really look at like Omar or Crockett or any of these people or AOC. When you hear them talking about what they want, it's a clear violation of their oath of office, no question about it. But rhetoric is rhetoric and action is action, so they can talk as much as they want to. If you can convict them of actual treasonous activities, then you got a case. And I think there's apparently against Ilhan Omar, I think there is a case, some evidence. Yes, Marisha says the right calls it a democracy too, including Trump's own governments, because we're idiots. We're rhetorical infants. When Biden made that speech in front of Independence Hall at night with the black banners and the outlines of the soldiers and stuff, he mentioned our democracy, was it 13 times? And the MAGA Republicans are a threat to our democracy. They're trying to destroy our democracy. They're trying to kill our democracy, on and on and on. So what did the Republicans do? They said, we're not trying to destroy our democracy. We're trying to defend our democracy. Well, every time we say the word democracy representing America, which party do you think most represents America? The Republicans or the Democrats? The freaking Republicans should have said, we're not a democracy. We've never been a democracy. The president knows this. Why is he calling us a democracy when we're a republic? This is a republic. And here's why a republic is better than a democracy. In a democracy, you can vote anybody you don't like into the gulags. In a republic, you can't. That's why we're a republic. But no, we're just absolutely incapable of doing that. Because if we would sell this as a republic, then the Democrats would lose a lot of voters. Democratic Party sounds like the party of the democracy. And if most Americans do, if you ask most Americans on the street, how would you describe our government? They'd say it's a democracy. I guarantee you most of them would say that. So no, don't let it go. We're a democracy. No, we're not. No, we're not. And we don't want to be. In a democracy, 2 wolves and a sheep get to vote for whose dinner. In a republic, the sheep has rights. There's nothing the 2 wolves can do to violate the rights of the sheep. That's why we're a republic. Because we don't want to be able to vote people into gulags, and we don't want to be able to vote our rights away either. That's what it's commonly said. Oh, the Reichstag, the Reichstag elected Hitler, and then voted him all these powers. That's absolutely true. They did elect him, and then they did vote the what's it called? Was it the Empowerment Acts? They basically voted him complete power. The Congress could vote Donald Trump complete power, or they could vote Barack Obama complete power. But that would be an unconstitutional vote. It'd be an unconstitutional action. It would just be voided by the Supreme Court. You can't vote yourself away your powers. So there you go. Hey, there's somebody's asking about the little shirt. It's a groovy design. I've forgotten the name of it now. It was 11. 11 Oasis. Hang on. Yep, here comes the link. For those of you who are interested. Now they look, I thought these were cotton shirts, but they're not. They're just printed polyester, but they do look cool. Here you go. And here you go. Oh, it's, the link is too long. Hang on a minute. Yeah, that link is too long. Hang on a second. It should just be 11oasis.com. Give me a second. Let's try this. Hold the phone. Yeah, try that. It didn't show up as a link in YouTube for some reason, but if you copy and paste it, it'll get you there. And they got some really cool stuff. But like I said, it's polyester. It's just a polyester print. I was very, very disappointed when I saw them, but they look good on camera. Oh God, anybody remember this? Where'd it go? Come on. Look like rat fink. These were popular when I was a kid. Hang on, let's see if I can find a better example. Anybody remember rat fink? I'll show you an example of rat fink. I forgot how cool rat fink was. Hang on a sec. Yeah, here's rat fink. It should be the new BillWhittle.com logo. Hang on, YouTube. I'm giving this very serious thought. Yeah, in fact, this is me in the bitchin' Camaro. Come on, don't be like that. You suck, software. Hang on. Hang on, YouTube. I'm working on it. Yeah, that's the new BillWhittle.com logo. I really think we're sticking with this. I love it, and I don't say you can improve on it. Ed Big Daddy Roth. Yeah, Rat Fink was awesome, man, and they had different. I just love that. I always loved. My favorite part was always that he had his hand on the shift lever. Honestly, there are times when I think this should be on our money. I really think this should be on our money. When people say, "What's America all about?" It's like, it's pretty much Rat Fink. Yeah, Mahalo. Oh God. Oh yeah, that's great. This is the soul of America right there, and I'm not I'm kind of not kidding. Yeah, Rat Fink. They were all anyway. You can get a bunch of different Rat Fink T-shirt designs at 11oasis.com. All right. enough of this foolishness. More foolishness later. We'll be back with more foolishness on Monday. And I will have had a haircut by then. I won't have to look at this ridiculous display. It looks like straw. Look at it, like animals are nesting in there. I'll be lean, mean fight machine come Monday night. So mahalo everyone, and this show is made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com who know who they are, and we know who they are, and we're very grateful to them for who they are and all the rest of it. And that's awesome and good and cool and all the rest of it. So thanks to everybody for sticking around and watching. Shortish show tonight, shortish, hour and a half. Get your 90 minutes, get your 90 pounds of flesh. That's all you get today. It's great seeing everybody, and we will see you on Monday night for the Stratosphere Studio.